Hi, my name is Uzi Awret, Inspire Institute from Alexandria, Virginia, and this is a paper that describes some of what I'm going to talk about in Frontiers. And it's always good to start with an explanandum. I'm going to talk about some strange physics that has a lot of philosophical advantages, and it is strange enough to be considered revolutionary. And I'm going to start with the problem of consciousness. It's not monolithic. It's really more like a big nut, and it's got a lot of strands sticking out of it, and a lot of different problem intuitions. Some of them are anti-physicalist problem intuitions. Some of them can have to do with transparency intuition, and there's something it is like, and so on. I choose two what I consider strategic anti-physicalist problem intuitions. One I call the SMP, or the structural mismatch problem intuition. Why does it seem that the structure of the phenomenal state and the structure of its physical correlates are completely independent? There's no transform that relates them, like the Gabor transform. The second is the physical identity problem intuition, or NAT-P. Why does it seem that consciousness cannot be identical to brain constituents? Okay, so what kind of physics am I looking for? It's got to be strange. And here there's a whole shopping list. Information should be more fundamental than space, which carve nature at the joints, and it should draw from the current revolutionary conflation of quantum complexity theory of computation and condensed matter theory. And it's a whole shopping list. You can go over it, and it possesses two attributes that can actually solve the strategic explanandum. And the physics that can do it, I'm going to claim, has to do with duality. And one example of duality is complementarity. Duality is much more general structure. And it's a Bohr's complementarity. Some systems must include mutually exclusive views for their complete description, which is interesting. However, consciousness and brain processes are not mutually exclusive. So here I'm going to embrace Suskins black hole complementarity because it is inclusive. And the complementary views are formed by an observer falling into a black hole with a phone book in its hand and one outside the event horizon. And both of them observing the same book, and they see completely different things in different dimensions. One sees a phone book in 3 dimensions, it's pretty much like what we see. The other sees the phone book scattered all over the surface, 2-dimensional surface of the event horizon, and that is very different. And this leads us to duality in the ADS-CFT correspondence. And here is just a quick, more mathematical description of duality, which explains why the two Hamiltonians are so different, and yet both explain the same thing or describe the same thing. And you can go over this one. However, the explanandum has to do with the ADS-CMT duality. And the ADS-CMT duality, I'm using CMT and CFT interchangeably because if I have a conformal field theory that is describes some kind of process or system in condensed matter theory, then I can use either one of them. And the anti-de Sitter conformal field theory, ADS-CFT correspondence, relates a gravitational theory in a weakly curved d plus 1-dimensional anti-de Sitter space to a strongly coupled d-dimensional quantum field theory defined on its boundary. This correspondence maps questions about complicated many-body phenomena at strong coupling to solvable single or few-body classical problems in a curved geometry. Here you can see why the reciprocal coupling constants enable you to move from one description to the other. Yeah, just to appreciate a little bit the connection between the issues of duality and duality, the principle of duality, and the whole relationship of the manifest and scientific images, which is so crucial to what we're trying to do. Here's a quote by Michael Atiyah. So this marvelous theorem tells us that easy information on one side is equivalent to difficult information on the other side, In physics language, the easy information was called classical, and the difficult one is called quantum. So if parts of the brain really were quantum field theoretic or were made of systems with a lot of coupled electrons or something like that, then we could have a scientific description which is a quantum theoretic and a manifest description which somehow finds a place in the ADS space. So we're looking for a physical mechanism. I claim the ADS-CFT solves both SMP and NOT-P, and classical physics, quantum mechanics, quantum field theory fail, including integrated information theory and GWT. And this is from Chalmers, 2018. ADS-CFT and quantum gravity possess the resources to solve both problems, but in a very strange physical scenario, which is I call the Suskins sphere. The strange physical scenario with many philosophical advantages, and here is a Suskins Shell computer. It's just a big quantum shell computer. It's a two-dimensional surface computer that, let's say, sits in a lab, and it is described by two-dimensional conformal quantum field theory, and has a bunch of qubits there, probably some kind of error correction mechanism so that it can work. And Susskind has a more radical interpretation of the correspondence principle and holographic correspondence, which is the ER equals EPR, where it equates entanglement with wormholes in space. In any event, on the inside or on the boundary of that quantum computer, the shell, we will have a three-dimensional ADS dual space. It's important to see that it is different than the lab space, meaning you're not going to find it in there. The only way to access this ADS space is by being uploaded to the CFT shell. And Susskind has this thought experiment that's based on a technician that is being uploaded on to the quantum computer. But here I'm just talking about the phenomenal field that is created, the ADS space, maybe as having a structure that is relevant and is reminiscent of the structure of the phenomenal field for different reasons. And this scenario can solve the NOT-P because of the ontological difficulty of locating this ADS space. And it solves the SMP problem, at least it can falsify it, by suggesting it has something to do with the dictionary that relates the duals of the holographic correspondence. And also, ADS space is infinite on the inside. Last couple of slides, I'll just kind of, in a playful way, say something about that. One way to relate the ADS-CMT to the mind-brain problem is showing that relevant parts of the physical correlates of consciousness are best described by conformal quantum field theory possessing a higher dimensional dual ADS space. For example, where the classroom, which is an NCC candidate shown to harbor massive two-dimensional conformal entanglement, consciousness could be argued to correlate with the more geometric, classical, phenomenological dual three-dimensional ADS space. And I said that this strange scenario, the Suskins scenario, it is strange, meaning that it would somehow be realized in the brain. But if it did, then we would get a lot of philosophical advantages. This is why it's kind of worth looking at. Here I have a list of 17. I'm not just going to go and go through them, but it explains why zombies don't threaten physicalism. It solves the meta problem. It overcomes subject coupling paradoxes because of no cloning. And it explains the privacy of consciousness, the novel origin for geometry, a favorable horizon for some of the harder problems. You can just go over it. And this is basically what I wanted to say. Here is a ChatGPT take on having an ADS space somehow generated inside our brains. And Zanen describes holographic dualities, transforming an interactable, strongly interacting quantum field theory into a more phenomenological theory that's based on things that we know and can relate to. So this is just something that I wanted to mention. And here is Maldacena that, together with Susskind, came up with the ADS-CFT correspondence in '98. He describes the ADS as the universe in a bottle. And here is Emmanuel Levias, who combines an ethical metaphysics with infinity, and we somehow realize our own infinity by recognizing the other's infinity. And he has this concept of face-to-face, where recognizing the infinite in us is by encountering the infinite in the other, which is an interesting idea. And this is really all I wanted to say. Thank you.